What's going on, guys? No, just checking in, and today we're going to answer a heavy question from a subscriber of mine. His name is Jeremy, and he writes me and says that he's been depressed so long that he doesn't think his wife loves him anymore. And he wants my opinion. He wants to know if there's any hope for their marriage, any hope that they could both feel in love once again. This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart because it really directly relates to my experience. Jeremy, I was exactly in your situation at about a year in. To be honest, I felt pretty certain that my relationship wasn't going to be able to survive. I was barely surviving my clinical depression, much like you've described in your email. And it was sad. It was sad because you feel like everything's being taken from you. Your sense of self, your sense of pride, your happiness, your stability, your work, your life. And then ultimately it can take your relationship, and it's heartbreaking. But there's hope, and I'm going to explain to you why. This is a very common email I get, by the way. I get this question a lot because if you're in a relationship with someone and then one of you, either you or your partner, because I get this message from both ends, falls terribly ill in terms of mental illness, depression, anxiety, it's like losing them. It's like completely losing them. And the dynamic of your relationship has changed forever. And, people have been requesting that I talk more about how it affected my relationship. And I really will sit down and dedicate a video to that. I kind of wanted to have my fiance, Jessie, in the video with me, but I digress. It affects your whole relationship and the whole way your relationship is to be perceived from both parties, the man and the woman. Or if you're a same-sex couple, the man and the man, woman and the woman. It is really hard. It's really hard to adjust. I just want you to know that I felt the exact same way first and foremost, and I was wrong. That love can be rekindled after clinical depression, severe depression. And I think one of the hardest things for the person who's not depressed but trying to support someone who is depressed, one of the hardest things to understand is that that is not the man or woman that you once knew. I mean, they are in there. They're still in there. But on a day-to-day basis, you have to completely rewrite how you see them and what your expectations of them are. I think one of the biggest issues is that, one, the caregiver gets burnt out, and two, they don't understand the condition well enough and they don't get their own support enough, so it backfires and backlashes. Because as the depressed person, when I was severely depressed, I was no longer the man my woman fell in love with. I became more like a child. And I needed to be consoled and taken care of, and I needed to be reminded that I was going to be okay. And she went from being my partner in life to my caretaker. It seemed like overnight once it really got severe. And of course, when you're in a relationship that's mutually beneficial, when it's symbiotic, two people giving and taking, hopefully close to the same, like we all strive for in relationships, and then that changes, it's very easy for one person to feel taken for granted, lost, hopeless, bitter, resentful. And that's what seems to have happened to you, Jeremy, and that happened to me as well. And in the numbness of being depressed, I honestly lost all feelings in general. I couldn't feel anything, truthfully. I didn't think I had a single fiber in my body that had emotion for the longest time. So of course I didn't feel like I was in love anymore. I couldn't even comprehend what that was because normal was so far away from me, I couldn't even grasp it anymore. All I knew is that something I once cared about was falling apart, and I felt powerless. Now, as for the caregiver, as for your wife, listen, if you hang in there, and if your wife can understand to the best of her ability that you're sick, and that you are suffering from an illness that will and can get better, she just has to get support in the meantime. I think one of the hardest things for the caregiver to do is understand that support system they once had, that partner in crime, is not there anymore. In little spurts they can be, but when you're severely depressed, they're not there anymore. So you have to find other ways to supplement yourself, and you have to see them more like a patient who's sick and needs help. And if you're married, for better or worse, this is that test. This is that worst. Now, what you also have to get, and I imagine this would be for both of you, if Jeremy, if your wife happens to be watching, is that it is no one's fault at the end of a severe depression that you don't feel in love anymore. Because how could you? Jessie and I have both admitted that to each other, that we didn't feel in love because we didn't even know each other anymore. I mean, when you're at your worst, as you understand, Jeremy, because we've been going back and forth for a while, you're surviving. And in a lot of ways, your partner is too. And in many ways, their life has been rocked far beyond what I could have ever comprehended. And so they're in survival mode. Maybe not as extreme as you, but their whole life has changed. So naturally, when the dust settles, you don't know each other very well anymore, but you love each other. And I think that's what you have to remember and you have to hold on to, because Jesse and I, we genuinely weren't even sure what was what when the dust finally settled and it was made obvious that I was starting to get more recovered and more stable. We didn't really know who we were, but we knew that we once were in love. We'd just been through something traumatic, something we could have never planned for. Just like there's no way you or your wife could have planned for this. Neither of you have ever been depressed. We learned as we went and we survived it. But as long as the root of your relationship is based in love, the romance, the in-love feeling can return. It's just going to take time. And it ends up happening more seamless than you might think. So I don't care how out of love you feel right now, you will get to know her again. And she will get to know you again. And I have faith that your relationship can flourish and survive. I have faith that your relationship can rekindle with time, and you have to also. And you have to be patient. I think some guys like me, when I finally started feeling better, I wanted it to just go back to normal. I wanted to rekindle the sex quickly. I wanted to rekindle the romance quickly, the laughter quickly. But then you kind of realize that there's the wake of the damage that was caused by your depression, by your illness. And now it's her turn. So the best I could say to you, and I know this video has been all over the place, Jeremy, but the best I could say is that now that you're feeling more stable, now that you're feeling better, do whatever you can to support her and be patient for her. And trust that the woman you fell in love with is still there too, but she's had to rewrite her whole entire life script with you. And she's going to need some time to feel confident that you're okay. But you love each other, and you're married, and you're committed. And I believe it will grow again like it has for Jesse and I. It just takes time, and it likely won't happen as fast as you want it to, and that's a tough pill to swallow. But I think you can do it. So now that you have bolstered yourself, support her. See what she needs. I imagine now you know what you might do differently. But you survived. You're still married. That means she survived too. I know that if I ever go through a severe depression again, we'll do things differently. The caregiver, your wife in the situation, she never could have been prepared for what happened to you guys. But she'll fall back in love as you fall back in love. And you get to know yourself again also. That's another thing about being depressed, is you don't even know who you are, much less who you want to be for other people. But without ranting and raving any longer, I just want you to know that I have faith in your relationship. And I think everything's going to be okay. And I just ask you to be patient for her, Jeremy. As patient as you can be, to let her process and see how she's been doing. Because it sounds like she hasn't been getting a lot of help. She was trying to be the strong one. But there's a broken woman there now. Very broken. More broken than she might be letting on. And she needs time. And your strength and your stability will help re-garnish and rekindle her own personal sense of security and self that was stripped away from the both of you when you were depressed. I know I didn't give any real specifics, but I mostly just wanted you to understand where I came from, how over time I was able to rekindle, and I feel more in love with Jessie now than I ever did. And like I said, a year in, I didn't feel in love at all because I couldn't barely feel anything, and she didn't even know who I was anymore. But we worked it out. We just stayed together, and we had faith, and we were patient. It's just a really slow, long grind. But it'll make you stronger than you've ever been, and I think that's the most important thing I can say now, is that you will undoubtedly be closer, more connected, and more respectful of one another than ever before. We take our partners for granted, especially if our partner is the stronger one. Sometimes we have it in our mind, who's the strong one, who leans on who the most. And when you go through something traumatic like clinical major depression, it really recalibrates the identities we thought we had, and the sense of self and the views we had on our partners. Life's scary, life's fragile, love is strong though, and even if you lose that feeling, as long as the core is there, it can come back, and you'll be more in love than ever. Just be patient. Be patient with yourself, be patient with her. You've come this far, you can finish this out, for better or worse. I hope that was worth something to you, Jeremy. I hope you guys are doing well. I do want to do a video talking more about my specific experience with Jesse and really the depth of what happened to us and how dark it got, because I did a pretty I sort of just did that video as an overview, but man, there are details, dark specifics that I'd love to get into, just I don't have the energy right now. But anyway, hope that was some use to you. Hope you're doing well, everyone. Hang in there, 1 day, 1 hour, 1 minute at a time. I'm in here working my best to get myself to a good place, and I hope you guys are too. Thank you for your time, and thank you for supporting this channel. If you liked that video, if it was worth anything to you, please hit the like button and support the channel. It means a lot, and I appreciate you guys very much. Take good care.